Episode 13, Four Weather Friends. As of this episode, we are halfway through Season 1. I'm Count Lurchalot, and this is Lukewarm Television. The episode focuses on Rainbow Dash and Applejack trying to determine who is the better athlete. It starts with them having a game of horseshoes. Can't help but think this is kind of ironic. Anyway, Rainbow Dash has an early lead, but then Applejack takes the win by getting a perfect shot. After some mocking between the two of them, Rainbow Dash challenges Applejack to an Iron Pony contest. This is a series of athletic contests to help them decide who is the best athlete once and for all. If you're worried about whether or not this will affect their friendship, don't worry, they will become very close at the end of the series. They bring Twilight over, and after explaining the situation to her, they ask if she'll be the judge and keep score. The rest of the main characters come to watch the competition, and Spike acts as the announcer. The first contest is a timed race of avoiding barrels. Applejack completes this task in 17 seconds, which is greater than her previous record. Unfortunately, she gets a 5-second penalty for hitting one of the barrels. However, this is still enough to make Rainbow Dash nervous about her performance. Rainbow Dash then runs the race, and with a time of 18 seconds, she wins the first round. The next round is a test of strength. Rainbow Dash manages to ring the bell, but Applejack absolutely destroys her. You'll also notice that they've attracted a bigger crowd by this point. The next is a bronco buck, and poor Spike is the victim. Rainbow Dash takes victory here as well. The next is lassoing, and considering what we've seen Applejack do already, it's not surprising she wins this one, and again, poor Spike is the victim. The next is a ball game that Rainbow Dash wins. The next contest is throwing a hay barrel, which Applejack comedically wins. Next is arm wrestling, or rather, hoof wrestling, which Rainbow Dash wins. Next is who can kick the football the furthest. Considering cows are sentient, I'm hoping that's fake leather. At any rate, Applejack wins, and at this point, I'm fairly certain the entire town has gathered to watch this competition. Next is who can do 100 push-ups the quickest, and Rainbow Dash appears to cheat by using her wings. Unfortunately, Applejack is too much of a good sport to call her out. The next contest is long jump, where Rainbow Dash again cheats by using her wings. I think it's clear they shouldn't have done any activities where Pegasi have the clear advantage, which happens again in the next race, where they have to carry chickens across mud and Applejacks climb onto Rainbow Dash's wings. I'm honestly amazed that no one other than Applejack has a problem with this. The final event is tug of war, and again, I think considering how much strength Applejack's shown throughout the episode, she should be the clear victor here, but Rainbow Dash again uses her wings to cheat. In fact, Rainbow Dash only wins because she tricks Applejack into letting go of the rope. Rainbow Dash declares herself the Iron Pony, but as Applejack points out, she only won because she cheated, which I have to agree with. Death Battle said it perfectly. Rainbow Dash might be loyal, but that doesn't mean she won't cheat to get her way. Thankfully, Applejack is the element of honesty and actually plays fairly. This leads to an argument between them. Rainbow Dash argues that Applejack never said she couldn't use her wings, but Applejack counters with she shouldn't have had to tell Rainbow Dash to play fair. Rainbow Dash declares she could have won without using her wings, but then Applejack tells her to prove it by challenging her to the annual running of the leaves and having a race with her. However, since the point of this race is to run, no wings are allowed, to which Rainbow Dash agrees. They make it official with a spit deal, but the rivalry between them is still strong. Again though, don't worry, they become very close friends at the end of the series. With Pinkie Pie acting as the announcer this time, she reveals to the audience that the running of the leaves is another pony tradition of changing seasons. In this case, they help the autumn leaves fall. However, this creates a problem for me because 2 episodes ago they were wrapping up winter. Now they're helping the autumn leaves fall? Either this episode takes place nearly a year after the winter wrap-up, or the events of this episode actually took place before the winter wrap-up, despite being a later episode. Then again, I'm probably just nitpicking because I have to remember that this is a kid show, so these aren't details I should concern myself with, especially when considering there are scenes where you can see literal clones standing in the crowd. The racers line up, and Applejack reminds Rainbow Dash that they have to run a clean race. Rainbow Dash declares she could win the race with both wings tied behind her back, which Applejack decides to take literally. As the racers prepare to start, Spike joins Pinkie as co-reporter, and they discover that Twilight is taking part in the race. Applejack and Rainbow Dash laugh at Twilight for this, as they know she isn't an athlete, but Twilight points out that since this is a Ponyville tradition and she's here to learn, she wants to take part in it. They wish her luck, but they still continue to mock her. The race begins, and we get some more in-world commentary from Pinkie Pie, who explain that the running done by the ponies helps the leaves fall. She also name-drops the series in this scene. Listen.
No, that's left to My Little Ponies.
The race continues, and Applejack and Rainbow Dash appear to have taken an early lead, being neck and neck with each other. While I'd love to commentate the entire race, Pinkie and Spike can do that way better than I can, all the more reason to watch the episode. Rainbow Dash and Applejack keep fighting for the lead until Applejack trips over a rock and falls behind, where she meets up with Twilight. Applejack tries to accuse Rainbow Dash of tripping her, but Twilight manages to point out that Applejack actually tripped over a rock because she wasn't looking where she was going. Applejack runs ahead to try to gain her lead back, while Twilight stays behind to admire the scenery created from the falling leaves. Applejack catches up to and overtakes Rainbow Dash. Their head-to-head battle continues, but Applejack gains a steady lead. Then Rainbow Dash finds herself in the same situation as Applejack from before, as she trips over something and falls behind the other racers. Rainbow Dash also accuses Applejack of tripping her, but Twilight again states she simply wasn't looking where she was going and tripped over a stump. Unfortunately, Rainbow Dash isn't as easily swayed as Applejack and still concludes that Applejack cheated and so decides the rules of the game have changed. Rainbow Dash catches up to Applejack, a comment made by Spike himself, but then Pinkie asks how is catch-up supposed to help them here, as she feels it would only be useful in a hot dog eating contest. This raises another question for me. Do these ponies eat meat, or are they referring to tofu dogs? I'm asking because I'm fairly certain ponies are herbivores. Again though, I am probably looking too deeply into the world of a kid's show that shouldn't be taken too seriously, and as a guy who eats meat myself, it's probably hypocritical of me to ask this question. Anyway, back to the race, Rainbow Dash has managed to take the lead. Rainbow Dash then decides to fight dirty by using a tree branch to slow Applejack down. Knowing that Rainbow Dash did that on purpose, Applejack decides that two can play at that game and uses the same branch to propel herself into the lead. Not really representing the element of honesty here, are we, Applejack? Applejack follows this up by throwing a beehive towards Rainbow Dash, again questioning if Applejack should be the element of honesty. However, karma works its magic as the bees give Rainbow Dash the incentive she needs to run ahead. Rainbow Dash escapes the bees and alters a directional sign to take Applejack off course. However, this delay allows the other ponies to catch up, like with all cheaters and racing shows, am I right? And Twilight starts inquiring on why Rainbow Dash isn't in the lead. Rainbow Dash, however, brushes her off, thinking she's now guaranteed to win, with Applejack going in the wrong direction. Applejack runs into Pinkie and Spike, at which point she realizes that Rainbow Dash altered the sign and she took the wrong road. Applejack asks them for a lift and uses this to get to the front of the race. Rainbow Dash calls out Applejack for breaking her own rule of no flying, but Applejack just counters by saying she said no wings. Again, really thinking we should revoke the element of honesty from Applejack? Then again, one could argue she is still being honest through a technicality, but no. You are being dishonest here, Applejack. I'm calling you out. Applejack runs ahead and continues to play unfairly by knocking a bucket of tree sap over and causing Rainbow Dash to get stuck. Rainbow Dash then takes a page out of Applejack's book and uses the tree to propel herself forward. She crashes into Applejack and the two wipe out into a tailspin into a cliff, which causes a lot of collateral damage. I honestly think they should both be disqualified at this point. Thankfully, they didn't hurt any of the other racers. Then Twilight points out that the running of the leaves should actually involve running. Because of this, Rainbow Dash agrees to only run from this point, but she does manage to trick her way into a head start. The race continues between them and appears to be neck and neck. They then start bumping into each other for the lead. Again, disqualify them both, please. They even start grabbing each other by the tail and pulling them behind. Again, find someone else to wear the element of honesty. Applejack accidentally pulls off the ropes binding Rainbow Dash's wings, at which point Rainbow Dash decides all bets are off and she starts flying, but Applejack isn't going down that easily and she tackles her. This causes them to literally start brawling and cross the finish line at the same time. They inquire into who among them won. Unsurprisingly, however, they both tied for last. They even came behind Twilight, who came in 5th. At first, they're surprised that Twilight beat them, but as Twilight points out, if they hadn't been horsing around so much, they might actually have won. This reminds me a lot of Dick Dastardly from Wacky Races and the Ice Skaters from the Redonkulous Race, because those are also characters that had multiple chances to win and only lost because they spent so much time trying to sabotage the other players. This is what made it so easy for the other ponies to pass them, because they spent more time trying to sabotage each other than actually trying to win the race. They can see they were behaving terribly and weren't good sports, which is followed by a surprise visit from Princess Celestia. Autumn is one of Celestia's favourite seasons, so she had come to view the running of the leaves. They apologise for their behaviour, but Celestia says it's alright, as she knows anyone can get caught up in the excitement of a competition. Twilight follows this up by saying that it's important to remember that the friendship is more important than the competition. Celestia agrees, which also gives us the lesson of the episode. Celestia then points out that because Applejack and Rainbow Dash spent so much time tricking each other, many of the trees still have their autumn leaves. Because of this, Applejack and Rainbow Dash agree to run together again to help clear the rest of the leaves. This episode was an exciting one in a lot of ways. I think we've all had moments where we get a bit caught up in the competition and start getting a little too competitive to the point where we might not be playing as fairly as we should. I also appreciate the episodes that show us the more negative sides to these characters. It shows us that they aren't perfect, like Rainbow Dash is so determined to win she'll sometimes forget to play fairly. It also shows us that even the epitome of honesty herself, Applejack, will even be a little dishonest if the competition gets too intense. Again though, starting to question if she deserves the title of Element of Honesty, but I think even the most honest people have their moments of dishonesty, so it doesn't mean it's not realistic. Overall, a fun episode that helped show some of the more negative sides to these characters, which is good, because if a show had only perfect characters, it would be boring. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next review.